The group of 7 countries have reached a concrete agreement on phasing out coal power generation. It also aims at expanding renewable energy production. This is according to the German Environment Minister. The pledge marks the first commitment from the G7 to quit using coal. Experts have said that the use of coal needs to decrease if the world wants to avoid the worst impacts of climate change. The German minister said that the final communique will include strong emphasis on protecting biodiversity and fighting plastic pollution. Germany hosted the G7 Energy, Climate and Environment Ministers for talks. The talks were held in the backdrop of spiraling energy costs triggered by the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And due to the conflict, some countries are forced to buy non-Russian fossil fuels. They are also burning coal to cut their reliance on Russian supplies. And this has raised fears that the crisis could undermine efforts to fight climate change. The Russia-Ukraine war has complicated the efforts to fight the impact of climate change, solidifying their commitment to fight the worst impacts of global warming and climate change on our planet. The group of 7 countries have now reached that concrete agreement on phasing out coal power generation. This is the first such commitment coming in from the G7 to quit using coal. The impact of coal on our environment, on our planet, has been outlined by experts, several studies and reports time and again. Germany has hosted the G7 Energy, Climate and Environment Ministers for these talks. The talks were held in the backdrop of the impact of the Russia-Ukraine war, which has resulted in spiraling energy costs and thereby has further complicated the climate change efforts. And with us on the broadcast is Svein Tveitdal, Director of Klima 2020 and former UN Director with us from Norway. Thanks very much for being here with us. Now, we just outlined the first commitment that's come in from the group of 7 countries to quit using coal. What are the immediate challenges that you think the G7 will have to deal with in order to implement this crucial agreement on phasing out the coal power generation?
Yeah, well, it's a good thing that G7 has come to this decision. I learn now from what I hear from the discussions that they didn't agree on a date. So Germany had proposed 2030, and I think the USA and Japan couldn't agree on that. So that makes me a bit suspicious that we will have another commitment that is not really implemented. To your question about what would be the challenges is, of course, that the need for energy will not go down. So that means that what I today get from coal have to be substituted by other means. And if you if you use oil and gas instead, it doesn't work very well. So the absolutely biggest challenge is to speed up production of renewable energy that, by the fact, also today is cheaper than using new fossil energy. But that will be the main challenge.
If you can explain to us the significance of reducing the use of coal if we want to avoid the worst impacts of climate change, and also how the Russia-Ukraine war has complicated the fight against climate change and has made this shift away from coal all the more difficult?
Well, let us start with the first one. You asked about the significance. And, you know, in order to achieve what the G70 leaders and others agreed upon in Glasgow at the last climate summit, they want to stop or limit warming to 1.5 degrees. To achieve that, the scientists is saying that we need to halve the emissions from coal, which is the most important, but also oil and gas in the next 10 years. And in addition to that, we need to triple the production of renewable energy. So if we don't do this, the world is getting warmer and warmer. And as of now, we are not near at all to limit the warming to 1.5 degrees. It's more like we go towards 3 degrees, which is more or less a recipe on climate catastrophe. So this, what the G7 has done today, is a step in the right direction, but it is not enough. And when it's if you are not even saying that you can stop the use of coal in 2030, they say that you should electrify everything by 2035. I think we again will see goals that are expressed and that are needed to protect the planet, but it will not be implemented. And when you talk about the war in Ukraine, well, I'm from Norway, and Norway will now speed up their production of oil and gas, and not the least gas, to help because you stop the import of gas from Russia. So in a way, Norway will contribute more to the emissions, actually. But on the other hand, I think there is also an absolute opportunity, because this war in Ukraine is saying something about that we need to make ourselves independent on gas and oil from Russia, and that we also need to speed up faster than earlier the production of new renewable energy. So that can, in a way, kickstart the necessary transmission to production of more renewable energy. And be aware, if we had listened to the scientists some years ago and had started to produce more renewable energy, which we could have done if we had been willing to do so, the crisis now had been much less. So we have to learn from that. And the simple thing is that we just now need to stop use of coal and also oil and gas. And in that sense, G7 decisions is okay. But to achieve that, because the need for energy will not go away, we need to triple or maybe quadruple the production of renewable energy within the next 8 years until 2030.
Right. Svein, thanks very much for joining us on the broadcast and helping us better understand the implications of this G7 commitment and the challenges that will follow. We're leaving it there for the moment. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.